Well, sorry about that, guys. Yeah, just got a call. So I'm moving into my new apartment on Thursday, so it's just a matter of that. Doody 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 doo. Going back to our lesson. I got a call. I got a call from my dad, so unfortunately I don't send my dad to voicemail. So, you know, like the stream ended because of that. So if you guys want to do me a favor and hit that little like button, hit that little share button again. We need to get those up again so we can get those few viewers back. So do me a favor. Let's get to, just hit that button whenever you guys come in. Share to join us. I'll just leave the post up there. Right? Like the post and share if you guys want to join in on our lesson. So, as we were talking, let's see. If you were talking, we're talking about the steps in which to actually learn how to do some foundational skills like subdivision and perspective for character design. And we were talking about the importance of seeing things in steps. So, let's share the stream, guys. We have 150 people. We have 2 shares. Let's get up to 50 at least. Let's do that. Okay. Let's get to 50 shares and then we'll continue on. Until then, I'm going to draw a little cute panda. I'm a little panda with a boba drink in my hand. Boba panda, boba panda, boba panda. Boba panda likes his boba. Boba panda is cool. Boba panda has a hat. Boba panda. Did we get there? Not yet. Not yet. We're almost there. Let's give some bamboo to Boba Panda. He's going to be super happy. It's panda break time. Panda break. Whoop, 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 whoop. Panda party, panda party. Whoop. Like the South Park episode. All right, let's go. We got there. Cool. All right, so stage 1 was seeing how to draw basic shapes, right? That was step 1. So that was something that we need to learn so that we can start learning how to differentiate things into shapes. So this is going to be very important if you want to learn how to make things look basic. Like how do you take like a nose and simplify it to a basic shape? Well, you just take 2 basic shapes and then you use that knowledge from your basic shapes to be able to start seeing things like that. At first, they're not going to be very depthful. They're not going to have like perspective. You're not going to see things like volumes. You're not going to see overlapping lines. You're literally just probably going to see this, right? Like a box and a triangle. And that's fine, right? That's all you really need to see at step 1. And that is the benefit of something that you can start doing in step 1. Step 1 also consists of you learning how to differentiate your line work, making your line work thin, and learning how to make that into progressively darker so you can use contrast later on, especially if you're going to be drawing in pen. If you're going to be drawing with pencil, you have an eraser, but I personally hate erasers. I don't like erasers. Erasers are dumb. Like erasers are, whenever you use an eraser, you're eliminating a point that you can tell yourself you messed up, right? Like, and that's not necessarily saying like, you're erasing mistakes. Yeah, you're erasing all the mistakes that are going to teach you a valuable lesson to not mess up. So the reason that I like drawing with pen is because of that, because it teaches me like the value of laying down a line. If I lay down a line and I didn't want that line, shit, now I got to turn that into something, right? Ding. Like those lines have to become something at one point. Otherwise, my drawing is kind of ruined. And that is where imagination comes from. So this is a big step. Like learning how to start seeing things in basic shapes is a very, very big step. Now, step 2 is going to be the first levels of subdivision. Understanding subdivision is very important because once you are able to subdivide something into this, which is just a 2 by 3, now you can make cool faces from the front because all you need to worry about is drawing all your features within that little tiny shape, right? That little tiny shape holds all your features. How hard is it to draw 3 features coming out of that little box? Right? So it's actually very, very cool to be able to know, just even without knowing much anatomy, you can take a basic shape, make a crisscross, and then me not knowing anything about anatomy can already come up with a pretty anatomically correct face that I can add faces to on the side. Doesn't have to match any sort of anatomical like point. And now I can do that from the front and from the side just because Rod was able to teach me where things go. Right? So now you can draw a face with no problem just because you understand how to divide a face like that or make this basic concept. Now, step 3 is going to be the exercises and muscle memory you need to be able to take a circle and make that into a sphere. Okay? The points of going from just dividing something in half to dividing something through, that is going to take a while. Okay? But it's going to be relatively easy process if you focus and you actually pay attention to what I'm saying. Okay? The way that I learned was as such. I took a circle. I would take 2 points within that circle. I would have to connect that with another circle. I would do this in all sorts of angles, all sorts of shapes for the circle inside, right? And then, just to get that feeling for depth, you color in that inside circle. And just like that, you divided a piece of your drawing from the rest. Okay? So essentially what you're doing is doing this. Right? This is this. This is that. This one is that. And you little by little, by taking different points in your sphere and taking different curvatures, you can start seeing the effect that it has. You can choose 2 points that aren't even connected and see what that does. Okay? This is the initial concepts for an eye, right? Taking something, eye basics. Take a point inside of the sphere, about halfway into the edge, and you connect them with a circle, creating an opening that later turns into an eye. Choose another point, and now you have the roundness for your eyeball. Choose another point, and now you have your eyebrows. Learning little by little is going to take the basic concepts that you learn, and they're going to turn them into all the things that you want to learn how to draw. Right? Take the points, connect them, and now you have the ability to draw through your shape and create all sorts of cool things just by connecting 2 points with a circle. Right? Point 1, point 2. Okay. Now this has like a top. Now I can draw like, I don't know, like a tiki mug or something. It's not relegated to just the body parts. It's not relegated to any just single individual shape. But I like to start with a sphere, from a circle to a sphere in this case, so that you can get used to drawing shapes like this. Okay? If you can get to the point where you can see your shapes like this, you are golden. If you can see this in different directions, why is this clunking up? Then that's going to help you be able to begin the process of moving in perspective. And this did not incorporate any vanishing lines or any vanishing points or anything like that, right? It's just a matter of understanding 2 points and how to break up your shape. So understanding the different levels of gradients when it comes down to these divisions is very important, because it's not just going up and down. You're going through your shape and you're trying to find the front and you're trying to find the back of the shape. Front and back. Okay. Start with a circle, with a sphere, and then slowly, because it's a little bit harder when it comes down to boxes, right? It's not incredibly harder because, like, when you're drawing a character, if you're being realistic about things, like, it's never gonna be like a super forced perspective, right? Like, you're gonna have roughly the same angle from a box going this way and that way if you look at something in real life. Like, it's never gonna be like super drastic changes. Like, this is some forced perspective stuff, right? Stuff like that is more forced perspective. So we're not gonna really focus on that because we're not gonna need this forced. Things like this do require a vanishing point, and they require like an understanding of where things are supposed to come from, right? That is quintessential if you want to do more forced perspective, or you want to do like 3-point perspectives where you like see buildings from the top, right? Like Spider-Man running. Whee! So if you want to do stuff like that, then yeah, you need to understand these sort of like vanishing points, right? All that stuff. All that stuff comes into play whenever you are drawing buildings and architecture stuff. But we're not. So we don't have to do that. We can get by just creating a measure of subdivision in our shapes. This is the best way to do it with boxes. And this can also be applied to spheres. But this is just another way to make something look and divide it properly going into the distance without actually having to require a vanishing point or any of that sort of stuff. What you're going to do is going to take a shape such as this. You're going to make 2 of the boxes of the same shape, or you can start with a box, make another box, and connect the points, right? So there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can just make a shape and divide it and make it into a box, or you can just actually make a box by making a box, make the next box somewhere in the back, and then connect the points. Okay, that is the other way that you guys can go about it. Whichever way works best for you, that's great. But now I'm going to show you how to divide this and make perfect little segments for your stuff. Pew, pew. What you're going to do, if you want to make something go into the distance, and you want to find that middle point of this, it's going to sound really silly, but you're going to just cut it in half, like across each point, and then you're going to go up and down, and that's the midpoint. That's it. That's literally it. That's the trick. If you have multiple things going into the distance, let's say we have this guy, but we have here, but then we want to add a different part to this, right? Like, let's say we have this guy. We find the midpoint. But we still want to find the next one. So we can create whatever. If you want to find it perfectly, you go from here to the midpoint up until it reaches this upper line. So something like that would be the case. And then you split that in half. And then you can keep going and going and going and going and going into infinity, really. But that is a basic concept that allows you to be able to draw into perspective really quickly, right? So, but we're not going to use that concept to infinity. We're not going to use that in, we don't really need to, but you can do that in any view, right? Any view that you have, you can just split it, go up, split it, go up, split it, go up. Split that, go down, make our shape underneath. And then using those little like tricks, you can come up with the next sections over and over and over and over and over with every single part. So you just got to take it by sections. That's why whenever I draw faces, I like to divide them into 3. Right? 1, 2, 1, 2. Because then I have all my structure there already. So just learning how to subdivide something in half already gives me my side view faces. Learning to divide something in 3 gives me the area of the rest of my shapes. So to find these little edges, it's not hard either. Once you have your box, do the same thing we did with the sphere. Find 2 points and then connect them. Or in this case, it would be 3 points, I guess. And you can have a lot of fun with having a lot of different shapes. Like, it doesn't have to ever stay the same. Like, you can have like your lines be completely different and then just have, again, different variety of characters. Right? And as you get better, you're going to eliminate the fact that it's supposed to be a box completely, and you will be able to draw your characters a little bit easier with proper divisions. And you'll already have the sides, the fronts, and everything like that. So that is the power of just understanding this level of detail. But this is going to take a while to get it right. Don't rush it. It's going to be a while before your shapes look round as opposed to trying to look round, right? It's a very subtle thing. It's going to be a very subtle thing, right? That subtlety is going to differentiate somebody heavily from having the roundness, that softness that comes with some people that just know how to draw eyes like majestically, or somebody that's just trying to copy a style. So this is going to be the big difference between artists. It's not going to make this one any worse. Like it's just going to be different. But if what you're aiming for is nice, awesome roundness in your shapes and like really cool styling, learn what your objects are made from so that you can stylize them as you need it, right? If you learn the shape of your objects and how your eyelashes work and how your eyebrows work and how the like everything in your eye works, you're going to be able to draw incredibly majestic eyes. If you know how your eyelashes work, eyebrows, and muscles for your nose bridge and stuff like that work, you're going to be able to draw super sensual stuff, super cool, like aggressive stuff, creepy stuff. You're not going to be relegated to just that one style that you think that you have to be so feverly attached to. No, you don't need to. No? And once you have this, once you have that step, you can move on to the fourth step. Fourth step is muscle, like it's just mental library. Mental library and imagination. Right? So if you have a box, right? Or you have a little shape like you already know how to divide this, so you're just going to make boxes and circles with divisions. Right? Your mental library is the difference between turning this into a face, turning this into a Coke can, turning this into a mouse, turning this into a panda, turning this into anything you want. Being the ability to draw from memory takes into consideration all the things that you have drawn before that you were actually happy and successfully drawing. So things will become easier to draw the more that you draw them, right? That means that whatever you are really good at drawing right now is already in your muscle memory, right? That is something that you don't have to work on so much because it's already there. So you got to focus on working on drawing things that you don't draw, such as like trees, like foliage is something that people just don't ever draw. And foliage is just a bunch of basic shapes combined and then with little texture from your pen. Right? That's all that foliage and trees are. All basic shapes. It's the difference between drawing something that's cute and something that's creepy. Right? Your mental library is a very strong component in your art toolbox, and you need to expand it as much as you can. So you need to go out and draw basic things like plants, right? Jesus, like I cannot imagine like how many times I've had to tell people to just go out and draw a damn plant or some grass, like, or a rock. Draw me a rock. Draw me 100 rocks. Rocks that are just on the ground, pebbles. Just look at how the shadows fall on them from that angle. Look at how a shadow falls from the other angle. Look at how the actual rock looks if you look at it from the top, right? Would you see anything? How would you distinguish that, right? There you go, something like that. It's just so like interesting to just go out and just observe life and try to replicate it in your drawings. It's kind of like it's kind of sad when people think that these sorts of exercises are boring, right? Being able to recreate what you are supposed to draw and be able to tell a story are some of the biggest components in just being an artist in general. So why would you ever shy away from just being a better artist, period? From drawing plants to drawing little simplified versions of animals like bees and I don't know. Like to me, it's very important to understand as much as you can about the world, right? Like it is. It's just experiencing life in general is something very important. So when you go out, experience life, right? And if you're going to stay home, you can experience life, but you can also add to your arsenal by taking the time to draw things from your favorite video games, right? Like, take time to see how the shapes for your characters that you like playing with so much, like, how are they like shaped and stuff like that? How are they working? How do they do that? Like, how does this shape work? How does Mario's head work? How does Mario's hat like work? Let's see. Let's try to break down the shape. It's a big part on the front, a little part on the back, and it has a beak. Okay, so there you go. Cool. Drawing through my shape, drawing through my shape. My shape has depth. Cool. Stuff like that. Like, all you got to do is sit down and observe something and draw it. It's not hard to build up your mental library. Just so many people just are so fixated on having to draw something cool. Like, they just want to draw something cool. And when you just focus on drawing something cool, well, you miss out on all the things that aren't necessarily cool, but they're really, really, really important to learn how to draw, right? Like, how many people don't know how to draw a cloud, right? Or a mountain, or a road, or even a simplified version of a tree, right? How many people don't know how to do these simple things, but they want to create like kids' books and stories and comics and stuff like that, right? All that stuff comes with understanding how everything around you works. And the reason that not everybody can be an artist is because it's fucking hard. It is freaking hard. It's really hard to go from this step one, just learning how to draw basic shapes, to learning how to make a Mario hat. That's just hard, right? But it's also just basic shapes, right? All this is basic shapes. All these are basic shapes. And going through the process of understanding how to visualize them and see through your shapes and stuff like that is what gets you there. And then eventually taking all this knowledge, and then we go to step 5. Is it step 5? Step 5. Step 5 is implementation of style. Of styles. Let's say styles because it's not like a style. So once you understand all these basic components and all these basic premises and all these basic concepts of basic shapes that interact with each other, this eventually turns into something more akin of a character, right? You start taking these concepts and you start applying these basic shape concepts, right? All these basic shapes. This is all just basic shapes that we already learned right now. From beanbags to cylinders to overlapping shapes. These are all just really, really basic shapes. I'm going to make them look cool, but that's because of style. Most of this stuff is just basic shapes, as you guys will see. Even fingers are basic shapes. Right? All of the stuff that comes out is a basic shape. So once you have the understanding of basic shapes, right, now comes the time to apply a styling to these things. So this is just my mannequin. This is not my style. My style is normally going to come across in your eyes. So if you're going to have eyes, whatever eyelashes you give your character is going to be a big part of your style, right? Your mouth is going to be a big part of your style, right? You can have eyes in a quadrillion different ways, and each one is not wrong, right? There's a quadrillion ways to draw eyes. Like, there is literally no set way that's going to make your eyes look like cooler or less cool. It's all going to be about how you implement that style, even down to like basic like Mickey Mouse, like classic Mickey Mouse, right? So if you're doing this, take into consideration your placement of your objects much more than how you draw them. Because where you connect things on your body is going to quintessentially be like, this is more important. Understanding where things connect is way more important than understanding how to draw it. So once you understand this, and this is basic anatomy, right? Understanding the placement and the position and the proportions, and understanding that there's no set proportions that are going to be like perfect, right? There is no set proportions that make a perfect character. You can have characters of all sets and sizes, and all of them are technically right. Technically, all of them are not going to not work because they all work off the same human structure, right? So you have all these sorts of proportions, and all of them are perfectly fine. Like none of them are off like putting or anything like that. Now you might have a preferred, for example, for me, I have a preferred shape that I like for my characters. I like my characters to have big hips, right? And I like my characters to have a really small waist and a very small upper body. So whenever I draw my characters, they tend to be more akin of this, right? This is my ideal. This is what I like to draw. So this is what I draw. This is not necessarily indicative that I can't draw in any other way because all these are just the same concept, right? All of these things are exactly the same idea. It's just me seeing these shapes differently and molding them and sculpting them and squishing them and molding them and bending them and stretching them that makes it like worth understanding because my system doesn't change. My system, even if it's a male or a guy or a woman, it's the same system. It depends on the styling that I choose after that. That's going to depend on how the character looks. Now, the character can look anywhere from realistic to super cartoony, and it's all going to be based on how you use your colors, your lines, your contrast, your anatomy, your shadows, and your lighting. So all that's going to play a role when it comes down to your actual style. But your style is going to be looking so much cooler and spiffier when you get a chance to draw it on a really cool structured body. Don't you think? Be it graffiti style, be it comic book style, doesn't matter at that point. You can stylize your character in any way you want. And your styles are going to be, you're going to have a variety of styles throughout your life, right? You're not going to be stuck to one style your entire life. So don't stress so much if you don't have a style yet. Learn your foundations, learn your perspective, learn your anatomy, and you will eventually realize that whatever comes out of that knowledge is going to be your style. Things like clothing wrap around your body, right? So you already have this basic shape. We already practice all the concepts of slicing the spheres and seeing things through, right? So if we practice these exercises, things like hoodies or shirts should not be a problem because we're just going around our neck in this case. We're just going around our shirt or our arm to create our shirt. We're just going around our body to create our pants, our hoodies, our shirts, right? So you start implementing the concept of style based on your knowledge of perspective and anatomy. So even things that are looking to the other way, I need to make sure that I'm drawing them through so that they look accurate whenever I actually finish drawing them. Okay? Your knowledge of anatomy is going to play a big role when it comes down to things that overlap, things that poke out, things that squirm in All these things are based on anatomical parts of your body, right? If something pokes out, it's probably a bone. So here, that's a bone, right? Here, that's a bone. Here, that's a bone. Here, that's a bone. Here, that's a bone. Most of the times when your body is poking something out, it's a bone. So consider that indicative of a bone. Bones don't move. Bones are hard. Clothing, it's the same thing. You're just drawing overlapping lines that are going around your shape and wrapping around it, so it becomes easier to be able to identify those. Let's see, would my hand, if my thumb would be outside. No, if my hand is facing like this, my thumb is inside. Anyways, things cast shadows, and then at that point you can just start adding whatever sort of like styling you want to your character, okay? If you want cargo pants and stuff like that, accessories and little items of clothing, they wrap around your clothing, right? Anything that's going to stick out, like a wristband or something like that, make sure that it's moving with the body. Okay. But yeah, implementation of style is going to be this part of it. Like once you get to a point where you can draw a shape through and through, style is going to be everything that's just stopping you from drawing your characters as cool or as detailed or as like awesome as you feel like drawing them. And be it like a comic book character. I shall kill you, Spider-Man. Or it could be like, I don't know, you just drawing yourself as avatars or whatever. Like once you start seeing your shapes like that, it's really, really hard to not see it anymore. Things like mohawks, things like earrings, things like that go around your shapes, right? If you want to find your other ear, it's very easy. Take this point, go around your shape all the way to the other side and see if your ear would show. Maybe a little bit would show right there. If you want to find your jaw, go to the bottom of your ear, go all the way to the bottom of your ear over here, and then trace your jaw. Ooh, look at that. Perfectly matched up. From ear to the chin to my other ear. Perfectly. That adds up. Perfect. And then from the bottom of my ear, I can dictate, that's where my neck comes out. So my neck is going to come out from there, getting a shadow that casts, and this is going to be round as well. So it has a midpoint. And that midpoint of my neck leads me to my collarbone. My collarbone is what's going to dictate where my shoulders go. Okay, so all that is more knowledge of anatomy combined with basic shapes. All this is just basic shapes and anatomy. That's it. That's all this is. So in my dedicated choice of style, if I wanted this character to not be that type of character and I wanted it to be just like a little simple chibi guy, I could draw him like that too. Same concept, applied a little bit different. So as you guys can see, it's a very powerful concept. So once you understand all the steps that take you here down to like your subdivision, right? You can start applying a bunch of different things to all these and having tons of fun knowing that whatever you draw is going to look pretty cool because you stayed within the realm of the measurements that make something look appealing. Then when it comes down to hair and stuff like that, you can apply it on top of your bald heads. That's what I always do. I apply my hair after I draw my bald head, because then I know how far up my hair is supposed to go. And again, the hair is also a shape that goes around your character, right? This wraps around. It's not just a line. It's not just a shape. Everything has a shape, everything. And that is what we implement in this other steps. All right. So again, if you guys like all this stuff and you guys are learning a lot, my books art block are very, very, very cool because they have all these sketches that you guys love so much. So if you guys want to get my books and you guys want to help support, my link to my books is in my bio. Feel free to go check them out. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of sketches, and the books are themselves like 100 pages each. So you will have a lot of cool things to look forward to whenever you guys buy these. And all the money goes to supporting me and helping me buy the things that I need to be able to run this studio and to live a happy life. So if you guys feel like being part of my oath and success, you guys can feel free to subscribe, donate, or buy my books, which gets you really, really cool something to have in your library. So anyways, back to our lesson. All right, so implementation of style. So that's going to apply very, very heavily when it comes down to your eyes as well. Your eyes in themselves are going to be hemispheres on a sphere, right? That is all your eyes are. Two little hemispheres on an eye and a sphere. So when you start implementing things that are a little bit not spherical, just remember that your eye remains spherical, right? Your eyeball still remains spherical. So it's still a sphere inside of there, regardless of whatever type of, like an angled eyelash is just this, but angled, right? If you guys want droopy eyes, you can draw droopy eyes. They all wrap around your eyeball, and it's just different ways in which your eyelids and your eyeball connect. So this is going to dictate a lot about the way that you style things, from something cartoony like that to something that's not necessarily so cartoony. The general concept is the same, right? Two things, objects running around in a sphere. Sphere, 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 sphere. Let's change it up a little. Right? So seeing somebody actually do it in front of you might help you realize that that's the case, right? The more you open your eye, the less eyelid you see. The more you close it, the more eyelid you see, until you eventually become all eyelid, right? So your eyelid closes mostly from the top down too. So it's like about like 80% top, right? 10%, 20% bottom. Like when your eye closes, it literally follows this like rotation grid mark. So it's like open, closing, almost dead, closed. Right. So that is essentially how your eyes work. If you see them as a sphere, it's so much easier. It's so much easier, guys. Like you have no idea how hard it was for me to understand how like eyebrows and stuff worked until I just made it into this sort of shape, right? It was my eyeball and then my eye bridge, my muscle for my eyebrows. So I saw these two basic shapes. And these two basic shapes helped me understand how to overlap my eyebrow muscle over my eyes and create very interesting facial expressions. Like more sad ones are very cool to be doing like that. This is also indicative of like anger because your eyebrow is coming down. And this is your brow muscle. And then you have your eyelid behind that. Right. So by understanding these two basic shapes, you can create a bunch of really cool stuff. Right. Yeah, so that's a very cool like concept that, like I don't know, it worked for me. It made me feel happy and it made me like understand things a little bit better. So when I was drawing heads now, instead of seeing when I have my eye line, if you draw it like that, then I draw my eyeball on that eye line. I straight up draw my entire eyeball. I then decide the styling for my eyeball with my eyelids. Right? And I have my upper eyelid, and I know that my eyebrow is going to be right on top of my eyeball. So it's going to be around here. If I want to make it come down, I'm going to make it come down. Okay, cool. By the rule of thirds, we understand that this is the top. We still have to draw our nose, but how much space do we want to leave for our nose, and how much space do I want to leave for my mouth? Let's draw a little nose and a bigger mouth. So our nose is going to come from there. It's going to come out. It's going to come out there. And then my mouth will be within this general area. That's my chin. If my mouth gets covered by my nose, it's fine because my mouth is underneath. Then from there, my ears are going to be in this general line as well. And then from there, that connects to my chin. If I decide I want to give this guy cheekbones, then the cheekbones come from here. If you're wondering why they come from there, let me explain it because that was a hard part for me to understand. Your cheekbones come from there because your skull curves out right there, right? From your eye socket, you have this gap on the outside that creates your cheekbone into your brow muscle, right? That we just drew right now, this muscle right here. So this connects and it goes into that. So whenever you are drawing your characters, especially in 3/4 view, they get this little V. If you're wondering how that overlaps, it goes cheekbone, eyebrows. And that translates into your V like that. This is the width of your cheekbone. So if you draw your characters with like a gigantic cheekbone, like some people draw them like this, right? Like, I don't know why they do that. Like they draw their characters with a gigantic cheekbone here. when they don't need to, because they don't have a gigantic cheek over here. Like if you do that, your cheeks are huge, man. Like your cheeks are like that, right? This shape has to be matched on this side. So when you draw like that, that's what I see. Like I'd rather you draw no cheekbone than draw like that. Like I'd rather you just draw flat than draw something with like an over exaggerated cheekbone. I don't know. To me, that just looks weird. And I did it all the time. That's why I tell you guys that it looks weird. Like that's just, yeah, I guess we're talking about implementation of style. But if you're going to implement style like that, make sure that you're like basing it based on actual anatomy. So if you're going to have like something that's like a cheekbone coming out right there, right? Essentially, your anatomy is telling you that you're going to have a character like that. Right? That is essentially what your anatomy is telling you. You're going to have that. So if you're going to implement a character like that, that's fine. That's pretty cool still. Right? Just make sure that you're matching that line work on the other side as well. You see what I mean? Like, make sure that that line is being implemented on the other side so that it doesn't look off, so it doesn't look weird, right? That is essentially what you are supposed to be looking at. When you're drawing a face, that's why I draw the mask. The mask gives you all the cheekbone information too. Once you find this shape, this is your cheekbone, right? So whenever you're drawing your eyes, you have your cheekbone area already. Your nose and your brow line already set because it's this line, right? There's so much information that goes into that little tiny shape that helps you map out your characters a lot easier. Did you draw any kind of animated movie? Nope. I've never worked in an animated movie for like movies. I've done animated movies for like commercials and stuff like that. I did a malto meal one a long time ago, and I sucked. That was like when I was starting my career, though. I didn't really understand things. I never really found animation to be like my go-to thing, even though I love animation and like making things move and making things squish and stretch and bounce is just like, and going into the distance, you know, things like that are fun. And understanding it is kind of really cool. Right? Animation is fascinating and it helps you tell a story. So it's something that you're going to. Oh, it's not a recording. I just don't look at the chat so much because I'm drawing. You know, I'm trying to teach. Like I'm just trying to teach, so it like becomes harder to be able to like look at the chat. But you know, sometimes I do. Some people get a chance to like ask questions and stuff. So the more you understand anatomy, the better you're going to be at drawing even cartoons, right? The understanding of a topic that you are interested in learning is going to be important. So, you know, don't skip on that anatomy training, that anatomy class. Like whenever you go to life drawing, don't focus on the shadows and stuff. Whenever you go to life drawing class, focus on getting like the overlapping shapes and see if you can create depth by just seeing how their body moves, right? Like try to don't worry about the details either. Fuck the details. Like see if you can get that positioning that they're doing, right? See if you're like knowledge of just basic shapes can help you get there. Pay attention to overlapping lines, overlapping shapes, like, in the calf, torso, where like connection points are with the hip and stuff like that. Those are the things that you need to pay attention to whenever you're drawing life drawing, right? Like, you don't have to worry about getting the person's hair right. Like, oh my God, her hair. Oh, let me spend 10 hours drawing her hair because her hair is like flowing. Like, who cares? I don't care about the design of her hair. I'm looking to see if I can draw these shapes and find my perspective within them. That is my point whenever I'm drawing life drawing. Like, very often I'll start like this, like a very super simple shape. And then from there, I'll literally pose my character in like 2 seconds, right? Just doing something like that. So once I get the flow that I want, maybe I want to exaggerate it. Once I get that flow that looks good, then I'll go in and I'll start seeing the proportions of the character. So if it's a girl, maybe the hips need to be a little bit bigger and the chest a little smaller. So I'm going to make that the case. And I'm going to give her hips, and I'm going to give her a little rib cage. And just like that, I turn this character into whatever model I'm supposed to be doing, right? But very easily, that same basic shape that I drew and posed, right? Imagine, let's do something like this. That same character could be like a super big, buff superhero by just making the shoulders bigger and adding more muscle structure to his legs. Right? Keeping that same structure. I have now created a bodybuilder from that same drawing. Right? So it's irrelevant what I decide to do with it. If I understand that it's going to fit in the right place, that's all that matters. Understanding the actual placement of your elements is very important. Seeing things in 3D is important so you guys get like cooler, things out of the deal. But understanding where things pivot from, like your arms pivot from the top, your leg pivots from the inside top right there, your neck pivots from the back in your spine, your rib cage pivots from the back in your spine as well, because that's where your rib cage is. So when you understand all these pivot points, right, you can start understanding how your neck moves back and forth, the limitations of how far you can take it. When you know the pivot points of your shoulders, which is your collarbone, then you understand how to rotate your arm a little bit better, right? Learning the pivot points of your leg, for example, gives you a very understanding of how to overlap the shapes. Like your knee, for example, right? Your knee leads onto your calf and you have your thigh. So your knee pivots from the front, not from the middle, from the front. So whenever you pivot it from there, it becomes easy to figure out leg shapes, right? It just becomes a lot easier to understand how the leg connects because that upper shape overlaps that because the pivot is in the front, right? Same thing with arms. The pivot is in the back of an arm, right? So if the pivot's here, whenever I pivot, there's going to be a connection between these two things, right? It's going to squish into each other, kind of like that, right? Like a basic shape that's just compressing against each other. So that ends up happening, and you end up with situations where you get like super scrunchy parts right there. You have your arm. Okay. So especially when you have clothing. When you don't have clothing, your muscles don't do that so much. But your muscles are still there and they're still overlapping. Okay. So yeah, understanding where your things move from, your things connect, where your things do things, that's more important than learning how to actually draw the anatomy behind it. So perspective and placement is more important than anatomy. But you need to learn anatomy so that you can learn where things go. Ah. Oh yeah. Again. Beep 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 beep. Twink, 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 twink. Just leaving that there in case you guys feel like checking that out. Anyways, let's continue. We have a little bit left in our page. So what do you guys want to learn? I'll give you guys freedom to we already went through all the steps. Essentially, the implementation of style is the last step. Like that's it. Like once you understand everything else, all this stuff is just essentially the catalyst of like you learning how to draw in shapely perspective, right? Everything from realism to comic books to animation to simplified things to caricatures to anything. All that stuff is accessible to you once you learn those steps. It's going to take a while and it's not going to be easy. It's not easy and it's going to be really frustrating sometimes. But, if you keep it up and you keep a good attitude about it, you're going to get there and it's going to be awesome. You will feel unbound by toes. Toes. Okay, toes are actually not hard to draw. Toes are fingers, man. But they just have like one less segment. Like, let's see. Let's draw a hand. And we'll draw a foot. Okay. A finger has 3 sections, right? We have the first section, and then the second section is as long as the first section split in 2. So we have a finger. A finger consists of a knuckle, another knuckle, and another knuckle. Right? This section, let's say this is worth 1, this is worth half, and this is worth half. So that's how you break down your fingers. Knuckle to the first section. This section is going to be the same distance as the next 2 combined. Okay, so that's how I learned how to draw them, and it helped out a lot. So when it comes down to the toes, you're going to have a very similar concept. You're going to have your knuckles. You're going to have 2 segments to your toe instead of 3. And each one of your little toes, let me see, hold on. We have 1, 2, yeah, we have 3 on the side toes. We have 1 and then 2 and then 3. So but these bottom 2 end up curling a lot. And they're really little. Right? So you end up with really shrimpy little thingies for toes. But essentially, they're fingers. It's essentially a finger, just a lot nubbier. Right? It's that, just nubby. That is what a toe is. So if you know how to draw hands, if you learn how to draw hands, then you realize that your knuckles are the base of your fingers. So drawing feet becomes a little bit easier. Drawing feet with cool, expressive toes is not out of the question because it's kind of like a hand, right? You can have like your toes going in a bunch of different directions. Or maybe like one pinky toe up. Like if you have your foot, you want like one pinky up and then the other one's down. But then you want this one to be like alert too. Right? You're not relegated to just drawing boring feet if you understand how feet work, right? Once you understand something, now you can stylize it. Same concept. Once you understand things, style comes later. Style comes after. Like, style comes way later in the line, right? Learning how to draw a toe is important. Learning how to draw a toe in style comes from understanding your basic understanding of a toe. Understanding that allows you to draw your toe in a bunch of different ways now, right? It's the same concept. Even down to like a kitty cat. Meow. Same concept, different style. So once you understand one, it's easier to understand the next. Okay, so what's next? That wasn't a toe. That's not a toe? What do you call that? That's not a toe? A dinosaur. I'll draw a little dinosaur. Wow. Just because I like dinosaurs. Dinosaur, dinosaurs, I like my dinosaurs. T-Rex is the best one. Big jaws. Dinosaur. Oh yeah, I'm also thinking about starting a sticker club soon. So we are in the works of creating some stickers for Sticker Club, and our first one's gonna be Mr. Platypus. What? Let's see. Do I have Mr. Platypus here? Mr. Platypus is gonna be our very first sticker. When did I draw him though? Let's see. Hold on. Give you guys a mini sketchbook tour while I do this. There he is. Mr. Platypus is gonna be our very first one. That's gonna be our first sticker. I'm gonna clean him up. I'm gonna give him like a little top hat and make him look really cute. And this is gonna be our first sticker. So if you want to join the sticker club, stay tuned, and I'll give you guys a way that you guys can sign up and stuff like that for it. But if you live in the United States and you want to be part of the sticker club, it's gonna be $5 a month. And you get one really cool sticker. Or you can sign up for multiples if you want, like a sticker of the week. But the sticker club will be like $5 for one sticker a month. And then if you want a sticker a week, it's going to be like $20 or something like that. And you get all four. So yeah, that's going to be sticker club idea. Sticker club. All right. Graffiti. Graffiti, huh? Graffiti stuff has always been like interesting to me. I've never been really good at it. Right? Like doing the whole like letters into like perspective stuff is really cool. I like it. But some people are just adept at this, and it's really, really, really interesting to see how cool they are able to make things. Right? I prefer much more having like the super cool, like hatted characters with like two different size eyes, and it always is like a spray can or something like that at the top. Right? That was much more my thing, like creating the actual characters for people. It was never the letters. Female anime. Anime is a style. There's no like way to draw anatomy like that. Okay? There's characters in anime that have anime bodies like this. Like literally. right? They have characters like that, or they have characters that have like dunks, right? Like there's characters of all shapes and sizes in anime. There's no like how to draw the anime way body wise. Just learn to draw the body. Learn to draw the body, right? Learn to draw your rib cage and your hip bones, and then you can change anything to be any sort of anatomy that you want. Like if you want like a super slender, like Sailor Moon looking character, that's all legs, big booty, and little hips, right? But if you want a Frodo, it's gonna be more like that. Right? It's gonna depend on what you need to do for the character. Stop thinking like, ooh, anime, ooh, Marvel. Stop thinking like that. That's such a like a bad way of thinking it, right? Don't think of the style. Think of you learning how to draw the shape, and then think of the style kind of like you would like inking, right? What if I want to ink things like super clean? Yeah, and I want super clean lines and thick to thin, right? Ooh, oh, no, I want it sketchy. I want it sketchy. Yeah. Oh no, no, no. Maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want it crosshatch. Oh yeah. Things a style like anime, comic books, not realism. Realism it's its own thing. But like if you're determining a style, that comes way after you determine your basic shapes and your proportions and your sketching of your shapes, right? Like figure out your proportions and your body parts first. Learn that. Worry about style after. Right? Once you understand this, you can turn that into anything you want. Superman. Boring superhero. Boring as can be. Nobody can beat me. Nobody can see. Right? It's just a matter of allowing yourself to have freedom to be able to take these elements and make anything you want from them. Now, if you want to really challenge yourself, do something that I like to do. This is an exercise that I like to do. Right? An exercise that I like to do is I like to create random shapes within a certain area. Right? Then I give myself a theme. In this sort of situation, we're talking a lot about faces and stuff like that, so let's do faces. Right? I have to make a face out of every single shape here. Every single shape that I drew has to be a face. Now, we learned the system to drawing faces, right? So we learned a really simple face system by just learning how to subdivide a shape. So we can take any of these and make a face out of them. You can take any shape, divide it into 3. Let's take that. Right? We're just going to take everything and we're going to divide it into sections. There you go. Cool. So we have a bunch of head shapes that have a potential of being here. Right? So now all we got to do is take any middle midsection and add a face to it. Try to have fun with it. Try to see if you can change different proportions, see what happens when you draw different size ears, different size noses, different size mouths. And essentially you're going to draw everybody bald. Okay? You're going to notice how different shapes are going to create different characters. You're going to start seeing the limitations of where your body parts can go. And what shapes look better for you when it comes down to your actual drawings. It can be something simple, it can be a little bit more complex. You can decide whatever type of level of detail you want to take these guys, right? But you're going to fill this entire page with heads from those very weird shapes that you drew. Try to change it between male and female shapes, and just try to make them all fit like a little jigsaw between each other. Try different lines for mouths. Experiment. Try to understand what you're drawing when it comes down to shape-wise, and you'll have a lot more fun because you won't be guessing what you're drawing. You'll just actually know what you're doing. Let's do... Let's see, this is his mouth. But then I can make this the top of this guy's. Nah, let's make this his mouth. Let's give this guy stubble. Well, okay. Doody-doody-doo. And if you keep going like this and practicing these sorts of exercises, you're going to be a lot more consistent when it comes down to your drawing capabilities. You're just going to be able to see things a little bit easier, a little bit simpler. You're not going to be held up so much about like things like improper anatomy and stuff like that as well. I just find that it simplifies everything to a ridiculous extent. All right. You guys start getting the point. Right. Little by little, as you start adding your knowledge of perspective, anatomy, and other style choices, you're going to be able to draw characters much easier. You're going to be able to map out your shapes much easier. You're going to be able to see elements like the jaw as a concept that's not unreal to actually draw. It's not going to be complicated because you're going to be able to see through your drawing, so you can figure that out. That way you can figure the neck out too, right? If you learn to draw through your shape, it provides a lot of cool, it's almost like a power, like a superpower for your art. Your X-ray vision is going to give you a lot of control over what you do. And all the time that you spend studying other people does not go to waste, because you're still going to have all that knowledge and you're going to apply that in a more refined way whenever you get a chance to actually go out and draw the things that you really, really enjoy. So it's not like you're wasting your time doing all those other things, copying other people and like learning from them and stuff like that. That is never going to be a waste of time. So keep on doing it. Keep on having your fun in Pinterest and like enjoying like yourself copying like your favorite posters and stuff like that, right? Do your fan art, that's perfectly fine. And then at the end of the day, just understand that you got to take all those principles that you learned from doing that fan art and now apply them to your own creative endeavors. And if you do that little by little, you'll end up with really cool stuff, eventually. Maybe not at first, maybe not right away, but you're going to have a lot of really cool abilities and skills if you take the time to practice and play around with things. Okay? So with that being said, we are done with our pages for today. Feel free to go buy my book, support me, sign up, go to my YouTube channel, all that shit. And if you guys enjoy it, please share my stuff. Is the only way that I get to show my stuff to the world. So I do appreciate every single one of you. Thank you guys for being my sketching buddies on this Monday night. Is it Monday? Is it Tuesday? I think it's Monday. So Monday night. Have a wonderful day. I'm about to go ride my motorcycle and do some stuff. So I love you all, but I gotta go feed my soul. So take care. Have a good one. Buy my books, and I'll see you guys next time.